For minutes, that is not a lot of time to save a life. And for millions of people living across the middle of America, for minutes is the entire distance between an ordinary Tuesday and the worst day of their life. This is the story of what happens inside those 4 minutes, and why, for so many people, they run out before hope arrives. The myth of the siren. For most of the 20th century, Americans were taught a simple story about tornado safety. You hear the siren, you go to the basement, you survive. It's a clean narrative. It fits in a school assembly. It fits in a public service announcement. It is also, according to decades of emergency management research, dangerously incomplete. Outdoor warning sirens were never designed to be heard indoors. They were built in the 1950s and 60s for a different world. One where more people worked outside, where homes had thinner walls, where background noise from air conditioning, television, and insulated construction didn't exist yet. Today's sirens are, by design, an outdoor warning system being asked to do an indoor job. Studies conducted by the National Weather Service and independent researchers on siren audibility have found that a significant share of residents inside modern, well-insulated homes cannot reliably hear an outdoor siren, especially with windows closed, air conditioning running, and any background noise from television or conversation. At night, with people asleep, the numbers get worse. Sirens are, in effect, an alert system for people who happen to already be outside, which, statistically, is the group least likely to be caught off guard by a tornado in the first place, since they can often see the sky. The people most at risk are the ones indoors, asleep, disconnected from any real-time alert. And it is precisely those people for whom the 4-minute window becomes almost impossible to survive without a plan already in place before the storm ever forms. What actually happens in 4 minutes? To understand why 4 minutes is so unforgiving, you have to break down what a family actually has to do inside it. First, there's recognition time, the gap between an alert arriving and a person actually processing what it means. Behavioral researchers who study warning response call this milling behavior, the very human tendency, when an alarming message arrives, to seek confirmation before acting. People check the sky. They call a neighbor. They turn on the television to see if local meteorologists are confirming the threat. Every one of these instincts is reasonable. Every one of them costs seconds that, in a 4-minute window, the family does not have. Second, there is decision time, figuring out where the safest place actually is. For a homeowner with a basement, this is simple, but a significant share of homes across Tornado Alley, particularly in Texas and parts of Oklahoma, are built on slab foundations with no basement at all, a construction choice driven by cost, soil conditions, and regional building tradition. For these families, go to the basement is not an option. It's a phrase from a safety pamphlet that does not apply to the house they are standing in. They have to identify, often for first time in emergency, the safest interior room, a windowless bathroom, a closet, a hallway, while the clock is already running. Third, there's movement time, physically getting everyone in the household to that location. This sounds trivial until you consider who actually lives in these homes. Elderly residents with limited mobility, parents with infants who need to be carried, children who may be at a different location entirely, like school or friend house, requiring a decision about whether to drive to them or trust that the other location has its own safety plan. Add these 3 phases together: recognition, decision, movement, and the honest, uncomfortable truth emerges. A genuine 13-minute warning routinely compresses down to an effective 4, sometimes less, by the time a family is actually sheltering correctly, and that number assumes the warning arrived on time in the first place, which, as we'll see, is not something every storm allows. There is a 4th, less visible phase 2, communication breakdown. Cell towers can become overloaded within seconds of a warning going out, as thousands of people in the same warned area simultaneously try to call a spouse, a parent, a child. Power can flicker or fail before the tornado even arrives, taking televisions and Wi-Fi routers down with it. Families who rely on a single channel of information, just a phone, just a television, just a neighbor's shout from next door, are one drop signal away from losing the only warning they were ever going to get. Emergency planners now describe redundancy, having more than one independent way to receive an alert, as just as important as speed itself. When the storm doesn't give you even that, Some tornadoes do not offer 13 minutes of runway. Some don't offer anything close to it. Meteorologists distinguish between tornadoes that form from a slowly organizing supercell, which can sometimes be tracked and worn on with more lead time, and tornadoes that spin up rapidly from a rapidly intensifying storm, sometimes called quasi-linear convective systems or QLCS tornadoes. These storms can produce a tornado with only a few minutes of warning, occasionally less, because the atmospheric signature that Doppler radar relies on to detect rotation simply doesn't develop until the tornado is already forming or already on the ground. This is the cruelest version of the 4-minute problem. A family that did everything right, that had a plan, that owned a weather radio, that checked their phone the moment it buzzed, and still found themselves with barely enough time to reach an interior closet before the walls came apart around them. It is also, statistically, one of the reasons nighttime tornadoes are so much deadlier than daytime ones. In darkness, with people asleep, every phase of the 4-minute sequence, recognition, decision, movement, takes longer. A 2022 analysis of tornado fatalities confirmed what emergency responders had suspected for years. Nighttime tornadoes are more than twice as likely to be fatal as tornadoes striking during daylight hours, largely because the 4-minute window effectively shrinks even further when a family has to wake up before they can even begin to react. Joplin, the city that rewrote the rulebook. On May 22, 2011, an EF5 tornado tore through Joplin, Missouri, killing 158 people and destroying nearly a third of the city in a matter of minutes. It remains one of the deadliest single tornadoes in modern American history, and in the years since, it has become something else too, a case study that changed how meteorologists think about the 4-minute problem entirely. Investigators who studied the Joplin disaster afterward uncovered something unsettling. Many residents had, in fact, received a tornado warning with a reasonable amount of lead time, but dozens of survivors later described waiting, hesitating, or seeking a second or third confirmation before taking shelter. Not out of carelessness, but because they had grown accustomed to warnings that, in their experience, rarely produce an actual tornado at their specific location. Researchers call this warning fatigue, and Joplin became the textbook example of how it can quietly erase the very lead time a warning system worked so hard to provide. In direct response, the National Weather Service overhauled its messaging philosophy. New warnings began using more urgent, specific language. Phrases like mass casualties are likely and this is a life-threatening situation, designed to cut through fatigue and force faster recognition. It was, in effect, an admission that the 4-minute window wasn't just a physics problem or a radar problem. It was a psychology problem, and psychology could be engineered to work faster, too. The families who made IT and the ones who didn't. In the wake of major outbreaks, the 2011 Joplin, Missouri tornado, the 2013 Moore, Oklahoma tornado, the 2021 Kentucky outbreak, researchers and journalists conducted extensive interviews with survivors, and a pattern emerged that had nothing to do with luck and everything to do with preparation that happened long before the storm ever formed. Families who survived overwhelmingly described having a plan already decided, not improvised in the moment, but agreed upon in advance. This closet, this bathroom, this specific spot, no debate required when the moment came. They described owning a weather radio with a tone alert that could wake them regardless of whether their phone was silenced or their power was out. They described, crucially, not waiting for the siren at all, because they understood the siren was never designed to reach them. Families who lost loved ones, in gut-wrenching interviews conducted afterward, described almost the opposite pattern. Uncertainty about where to go, disagreement in the moment about whether the threat was real, reliance on a single warning source that failed or arrived too late, precious seconds spent debating instead of moving. This is the hardest truth inside this story. In the 4-minute window, indecision is not a neutral choice. It is, functionally, the same as choosing not to shelter at all. There's a particular kind of interview that recurs across nearly every after-action report from a major outbreak, a survivor describing, almost apologetically, that they just weren't sure it was going to hit us. They described standing at a window. They described stepping onto a porch to look at the horizon, trying to visually confirm a threat that radar had already confirmed for them. In hindsight, every one of these survivors says the same thing, that they wish they had simply trusted the warning the first time arrived, instead of trying to independently verify a threat that trained meteorologists, using tools far more sensitive than the human eye, had already spent minutes confirming on their behalf. This is not a story about people making foolish choices. It is a story about a very natural human instinct, the desire to see danger before believing in it, collide to a hazard that, by the time it becomes visible, has often already used up most of the time available to escape it. The 4 minutes you can control. Here's what separates this disaster from almost every other kind of danger this channel covers. Unlike a heat wave settling over a continent or a tornado corridor shifting hundreds of miles east over decades, the 4-minute window is one piece of the disaster that ordinary people can actually prepare for directly starting today. Meteorologists and emergency planners consistently point to the same handful of interventions: a NOAA weather radio, which broadcasts alerts independent of cell phone networks and can wake a sleeping household with a loud tone, closing the single biggest gap in nighttime tornado deaths. A pre-designated safe room, decided calmly in advance rather than debated in a panic, removing the decision time costs entirely. A plan for where children are during the day and who is responsible for reaching them, removing the most agonizing form of hesitation parents describe. And a household rule, agreed upon before the season even starts, that a tornado warning means immediate action, not confirmation seeking, not checking the sky, not waiting to see what a neighbor does. None of these interventions require money most families don't have. None of them require infrastructure a city has to build. They require 4 minutes of preparation, done calmly, months before the 4 minutes that actually matter arrive without warning. The mother in Moore, Oklahoma, made it to the school. The tornado missed the building by less than half a mile. Her daughter was already sheltering in an interior hallway, exactly where the school's plan said she should be, because someone months earlier had made a decision in advance instead of in a panic. Not every family in Tornado Alley gets that ending. The difference, more often than meteorologists or emergency responders are comfortable admitting, is not the storm itself. It's whether the 4 minutes were spent deciding, or whether deciding had already been done. Every spring, the same setup returns to plains. Warm Gulf air pushes north. Cold air drops down from the Rockies. They meet somewhere over Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, and the atmosphere begins once again to build the conditions for exactly this kind of afternoon. The radar will see it coming. The forecasters will issue the warning, usually with real lead time, usually with real accuracy, using tools and language refined over 70 years of hard-won lessons from disasters like Joplin. The system, in other words, will very likely do its job. What happens after that, in the 4 minutes that follow, has never been the system's responsibility alone. It has always belonged to the people standing inside the warning, to whether they made their decision in March, sitting calmly at a kitchen table, or whether they're trying to make it in real time, with the sky already turning green outside the window. The sky does not wait for you to be ready. It never has. The only real question Tornado Alley has ever asked its residents is the same one it's been asking for 70 years. When your 4 minutes come, will you already know exactly what to do?